Hello, I'm Joe Ty from Values Coach, and it is a privilege to be a part of the Gratitude Symposium and to share some ideas with you. And in my time with you, I'm going to challenge you to think about gratitude in probably a new way. And I'm also going to share with you 5 practical strategies for creating a more positive culture of optimism and gratitude. I'll explain why those two things go together. You know, I've seen articles that gratitude is good for you. And so I asked my research director to find some research on it. And here's what she came back with. A study from Duke University. Gratitude prevents emotional exhaustion and burnout in healthcare workers. Studies from Penn, NC Chapel Hill, and Colorado State all conclude gratitude makes us better people by promoting pro-social behavior. Research from Harvard. Indirectly promotes more healthy aging, reduces heart failure related inflammation. UCSD study linked to improved physical and emotional well-being. Study from UCLA increases positive chemicals in the brain like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and reduces stress level related hormones. All this stuff is really good. Gratitude turns out to be good for you physically and emotionally. It is also good for your future. And I'll explain that in a minute. But first, I need to share with you what I consider to be the ultimate paradox of life. And that is this. Whatever you most need in life will be the most difficult for you to find at precisely the time you need it the most. Think about it. It's easy to be motivated when everything's going great, isn't it? The job's going well, you just got promoted, the kids are happy, your health is good. It's easy for you to be motivated then. It's also substantially irrelevant because things are already going great. It's when you've lost the job, the kids are in trouble, your health is failing, that you most need the power of motivation. And that's when it's hardest for you to find. And if you can find it, to motivate yourself, that's when you create the leverage to turn your life around in a positive way. It's easy to have courage when your fears are small. It's easy to persevere when you're going over speed bumps. It's when you hit that brick wall that it is most difficult for you to persevere. It's easy to have integrity when there's no temptation. It's when cutting a corner or telling a lie would be greatly to your benefit that it is hardest for you to hold to that commitment. It's easy to serve others when you have everything you need yourself. It's when you're running short that it's hardest for you, but also most important for you, for your own emotional well-being, for you to reach out and help others who are struggling too. And that principle applies to gratitude. It is easy to have gratitude when everything is going great. It's easy to be grateful when things are great, isn't it? It's when, as so many people are today, when you've lost, it's when you're struggling. People coming out of the pandemic have lost loved ones, they've lost income, they've lost jobs, they're lonely. Everybody is struggling today, and it's so hard when you're doing that to find that inner gratitude, but it is so important. And it is so important for you as a leader to help people find that. Now, I told you that I was going to explain why gratitude is good for your future. And it's because of the integral causal relationship between gratitude and optimism. Optimism, there's a lot of research on the power of optimism. You know, Martin Seligman wrote the book Learned Optimism, showing a causal relationship between being optimistic and having better outcomes in life. And that applies across a broad spectrum. In business, we call it the Hawthorne effect. In psychology, it's called the Pygmalion effect. In medicine, it's called the placebo effect. Over and over, we're finding that what you expect has a big impact on what you get. You create through your belief, through your optimism, through your expectations. You can create self-fulfilling prophecies. At Values Coach, we call it memories of the future. Think about it. Optimism is really nothing more than prospective gratitude. It's being grateful for something you expect to happen. Optimism creates a momentum. If you're optimistic today, you're going to achieve more later. And the foundation of that is gratitude. Gratitude creates momentum. Ingratitude creates momentum. Gratitude creates momentum toward optimism. If you're grateful for what you have today, you're going to be more optimistic that you'll have other things to be grateful for later. On the other hand, if you're resentful today, if you're not grateful today, what on earth do you think will change to make you grateful later? And by the way, if you say, oh, winning the lottery or some such thing, go do some research. Read about how many people win the lottery and end up bankrupt and miserable within a fairly short period of time. That's not what's going to make you more grateful. It's something that's going to come from within. So if gratitude is so important at a personal level, is it also important at an organizational level? And I submit to you that having a culture that reflects gratitude will help you create a much more successful organization, a better place to work, a place with a better reputation, and even better business and clinical outcomes than an organization that reflects resentment and ingratitude. So with that in mind, let me share with you 5 practical strategies for building a culture that reflects more positive gratitude and optimism. Now, before I do, let me tell you, these are probably things that you're already doing. But with the pandemic and the recession and the social turmoil we've been through, let me challenge you to think about how you can expand how you're using these. Think about these strategies in a new and different way. How you can use them more frequently, much more frequently, because of the challenges that we're going through today. Strategy number 1 is celebration. Celebrating. James O'Toole wrote a book called Leadership A to Z some years back, and it's structured like a dictionary. And when you get to C, he has cheerleading. And he says, why do so many leaders forget to put the cheer? Forget that part of being a leader is being a motivator. Part of being a leader is cheering people on, encouraging people. I will never forget my first day at Children's Hospital New Orleans. We've been working with them for years now, but I'll never forget my first day. See, there was a young boy there named Jeremiah. He was 18 months old, and he had spent most of his life at Children's Hospital New Orleans. He had significant physical and mental challenges, and he had just been adopted. And his foster parents had come to take him to his new home. And they had what in New Orleans is known as a second line. They brought in a jazz musician, and from the 5th floor, down through the elevators and all around the hospital, they followed the trumpeter and they waved their kerchiefs. And they got to the front lobby and people were dancing and the trumpet player was playing. New mom and dad were in tears. I guarantee you they will never forget that day. And for all of the clinical excellence at Children's Hospital New Orleans that went into keeping that young boy alive for 18 months, the social workers who were able to connect the parents, the one thing they're going to remember, and in fact, one thing that many of the people who followed Jeremiah to the front door are going to remember is the celebration. How can you celebrate more? Any excuse for a celebration. And I'll tell you this, lots of little celebrations are going to have a bigger impact on your culture than having one big bang celebration, Nurses Week or something like that. The second strategy is related, and that is recognition. Not just from the top down, recognizing people for being certified or something, but creating a culture where we recognize each other, we celebrate each other, and in doing that, we express our gratitude for each other. And there are a lot of new technological ways to help you create that sort of a culture. There are applications like Endorse, small n, capital D-O-R-S-E, or Wambi, W-A-M-B-I. These are applications that somebody on their cell phone can use to recognize and celebrate and express gratitude for a coworker. If you're a hospital, I'm sure you're already giving Daisy Awards to nurses to recognize nursing excellence. Anything you can do to create that spirit where people are looking for an excuse to congratulate and express gratitude toward a colleague rather than just, another day, another dollar. Well, it's just my job I'm doing. The third strategy is to implement more rituals. Rituals are one of the first evidences of civilization, or rituals. And over time, we had rituals for everything, for birth, for death, for meals. And we've lost that in many respects. Today, we don't have rituals, we have meetings. And so I would encourage you, find ways to have daily rituals. The organizations we work with, we challenge them to have daily huddles. One huddle in a main work area in the morning, but then in each department have a huddle. And we challenge them to start their huddle with two things. We have something called the Pickle Pledge, which is a great formula for having gratitude. And it simply says, I will turn every complaint, my head is killing me, into a blessing. Thank God for modern pharmacology. Or a constructive suggestion. The first symptom of dehydration is a headache. I should drink some water. And when people say that over time, it begins to sink in. You see actual changes in people's attitudes and in their behaviors and in the way they deal with the minor irritances they used to complain about. And the second thing we challenge them to do is to repeat the promise from each day's promise from our self-empowerment pledge. One promise for each day of the week. And again, when people say that over time, they begin to learn the words, they begin to internalize the meaning of the words. And I want to tell you a story that captures that. I was at a hospital we'd been working with, and it was a Friday, and they had finished doing Friday's promise on resilience. And this guy raised his hand, and he said, we never meet on Saturday, so we never do Saturday's promise. Would you all please do that with me? Now, Saturday's promise is on perspective. And it says, though I might not understand why adversity happens, by my conscious choice, I will find strength, compassion, and grace through my trials. What nobody knew, none of his more than 100 colleagues in that lobby area where they did their huddle, was that he had just been diagnosed with a severe illness. And he wanted his colleagues, his friends, to be there with him and repeat that promise with him. I was there. I was astonished at how many people, even though they didn't meet on Saturdays, how many people already knew that promise by heart because they'd been doing it at home. And those that did know it by heart, most of them had it on their phone or in their pocket. Now, had they not been doing that as a daily ritual, that one celebration and recognition and expression of gratitude for the love and empathy of the people working with that man, it never would have happened. How can you implement daily rituals? They don't take a lot of time, but implement daily rituals and stay with them over time until the intention behind that, being more positive, being more self-empowered, proceeding until apprehended, until that becomes a part of your culture. See, rituals create space for those things to happen. And you never could have predicted that on a Friday somebody would have said, hey, would everyone do this for me? They create the opportunity for synchronicity and serendipity. The fourth is perhaps most important today. Coming out of the pandemic, we all hope and pray we're coming out of it at this point. There are so many people who have suffered losses. There is so much emotional trauma. Diana Handel and Mark Golston have written about post-COVID PTSD. And in one of their books, they say COVID-19 was the earthquake, and widespread PTSD is likely to be the aftershocks. I once had the privilege to work with the late Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. C. Everett Koop, great American hero. And I asked him, of all the health developments of the 20th century, what do you think is most important? And I thought, him being a pioneering pediatric surgeon, he might have mentioned something about that. Or having been the man who more than any other helped us eradicate smoking from public places and who more than any other helped us address AIDS, I thought he would talk about public health. You know what he said? He said the support group. Because in support groups, people take back their own personal power, that proceed until apprehended sort of mindset, and they encourage each other. They stop depending upon a medical professional to help them with it. And if you've ever been in a support group, and I've been in many support group meetings, you've probably seen the same thing I have. What you see is gratitude. You see people who are grateful for the love and for the empathy of the people who are reaching out to help them. And who benefits the most? Well, in AA, they call it mutuality. It's not a top-down relationship. When Bill W. and Dr. Bob started Alcoholics Anonymous, they acknowledged mutuality. They said, we need the alcoholic that we're trying to help as much as they need us. That's how we stay sober. We created at Values Coach a course called Everyday Courage for Extraordinary Times. It's 21 short videos, and my intention was that people would watch them with the idea of creating that inner courage to help them through the pandemic and post-pandemic. And it is. One of the most wonderful things I'm seeing, though, is the way many organizations are using this to start a support group, to help people help each other have that sort of everyday courage. And today we need that more now than ever before. And I promised 5 strategies, and here's number 5. Show up. In his classic book, The Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien had Gandalf show up where he was most needed but least expected. And that priority, that imperative for you as a leader to show up, to be there, that's essential for celebration, for recognition, for rituals, for you to physically, visibly be present and encouraging people, listening to people, simply showing up. As Woody Allen said, that's 90% of success. Let me wrap up with a real-world example of what I think of as gratitude is if turning your grief into somebody else's gift, which is something you see in every support group. I cannot think of a more devastating tragedy than the loss of a child. I can't think of anything inherently to be grateful for in the loss of a child. You have to conscientiously work to find something to be gratitude, to be grateful for, something to turn your grief into a gift for somebody else. When Mark and Bonnie Barnes lost their son Patrick, it was a devastating loss. He was a young, brand new dad. He had a great future in front of him. And he died of a rare autoimmune disease. And what they found to be grateful for was the caring and the compassion of the nurses who had taken care of him. And they started the Daisy Foundation. And to date, more than 2 million nurses around the world have been nominated for Daisy Awards. And you talk to any nurse who's ever received a Daisy Award, and they will tell you that was one of the highlights of my nursing career. So it's been a blessing for millions of people, the way Mark and Bonnie turned their grief into a gift for now millions of others. But you know who I think the greatest beneficiaries of the Daisy Foundation have been? It's been Mark and Bonnie themselves. Their commitment to turn their grief into gratitude, into a gift for so many others, has come back to them in so many ways that probably never could have been, I'm certain that they didn't anticipate. And that's ultimately the privilege for you, the payoff for you. When you make gratitude a part of your personal mindset, when you build gratitude in the culture of your organization, you will receive benefits and paybacks that could not be anticipated or projected in any real way, but they will be far greater than what you would have projected if you had sat down with pencil and paper. Let me wrap up with some thoughts about the pandemic. I just created a project called Stay Strong for Us. It's a free ebook. We've had more than 100 contributing authors submit messages of hope and encouragement. And you know, one of the dominant themes throughout, from healthcare leaders, from the authors, the leading thinkers who participated, is gratitude. Gratitude for our caregivers, for our frontline workers, gratitude for each other. And that, we have to hang on to that as we come out of the pandemic, because as Hendel and Golston said, we're going to face a long-term aftershock of emotional trauma, personal grief, loneliness, a sense of loss that we have to address with a spirit of gratitude. We all hope and pray that vaccines will be the light at the end of the tunnel for COVID. But that light at the end of the tunnel is not going to be like the finish line at a marathon. You know, everybody runs through the tape breaks and the race is over. It's much more like a torch. It's a torch that we have to pick up and carry to light the way for the people who are still in the tunnel behind us, dealing with personal grief and loneliness and loss, career disruption, financial challenges, and to light our way into the next tunnel. We don't know what it will be, but we know that there's another tunnel. And having a spirit of gratitude, a culture of gratitude, will help us find the resilience for the people behind us, help us sustain the optimism for going into the tunnel before us. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, your organization, give your family, and your community is that spirit of gratitude and optimism and staying strong. Thank you. God bless you, and good luck with where you go from here.